There's a moment in every life when the world feels impossibly loud. When you walk into a room and wonder if anyone truly sees you, or if you're just another face in the crowd. Maybe you felt it, that ache, that silent question, do I matter here? It's a question that echoes in boardrooms and bedrooms, in classrooms and crowded city streets. It's the question that shapes destinies, that forges leaders, that breaks hearts and builds empires. And it's the question that, if you learn to answer for others, will change your life forever. Imagine Abraham Lincoln standing in the White House, the weight of a nation on his shoulders. He was not the loudest man in the room. He was not the most polished, nor the most charming. But he had a gift, a quiet, almost invisible power. He made people feel important, not with grand speeches or empty flattery, but with the way he listened, the way he looked at you as if you were the only person in the world. He understood a truth that most people miss. The deepest human hunger is not for food or money or even love. It's to feel significant, to feel seen. You know this hunger. You felt it in the silence after a joke falls flat, in the sting of being overlooked, in the warmth of a friend's undivided attention. But what if you could be the person who feeds that hunger in others? What if you could walk into any room and without saying a word, make people feel like they matter? That is the secret to influence. That is the secret to connection. And it begins not with what you say, but with who you are. Think of the people who changed your life. The teacher who believed in you when no one else did. The friend who listened without judgment. The boss who noticed your effort, even when you failed. They didn't need to announce their importance. They didn't need to dominate the conversation. They made you feel important, and in that moment, you would have followed them anywhere. This is not about manipulation. It's not about tricks or tactics. It's about presence. It's about the rare, almost sacred act of giving someone your full attention. In a world addicted to distraction, attention is the new currency, and the richest people are those who give it freely. Dale Carnegie understood this. He wrote, "The deepest principle in human nature is the craving to be appreciated. But appreciation is not applause. It's not a pat on the back or a polite nod. It's the feeling that in this moment, you are the most important person in the world to someone else. And you can give that gift, not with words, but with your eyes, your silence, your presence." So how do you do it? How do you make people feel important without saying a word? It starts with empathy, with the willingness to step outside your own story and enter someone else's. It starts with listening, not just to the words, but to the spaces between them, to the hopes and fears that live in every pause, every sigh, every nervous laugh. It starts with the courage to be fully present, to put down your phone, to silence the noise in your mind, to look someone in the eye and say, without speaking, "I see you, you matter." That is the beginning of influence. That is the beginning of respect. And it is the beginning of a journey that will change not only the lives of those around you, but your own. There is a language older than words, a current that runs beneath every conversation, every handshake, every glance across a crowded room. It is the language of empathy, the silent understanding that bridges the gap between souls. Most people never learn to speak it, but those who do become unforgettable. Think of Franklin D. Roosevelt rolling through the White House in his wheelchair, his body battered by polio, but his spirit unbroken. He could not always stand tall, but he could always stand with you. He listened to the pain of a nation during the Great Depression, not with pity, but with a fierce, unyielding empathy. He made people feel that their struggles were his struggles, their hopes his hopes, and in that silent exchange, he won the trust of millions. Empathy is not agreement. It is not surrender. It is the willingness to feel what another feels, to step into their shoes, even if only for a moment. It is the quiet question behind every great connection. What is it like to be you right now? When you ask that question, not with your lips but with your heart, you unlock a power that no argument, no authority, no title can match. In a world obsessed with being right, empathy is the rarest form of strength. It is the courage to listen when you want to speak, to understand when you want to judge, to connect when you want to withdraw. It is the secret weapon of every great leader, every beloved friend, every unforgettable human being. Imagine a crowded subway, the air thick with impatience and exhaustion. A stranger drops their bag, papers scattering like leaves. Most people look away, lost in their own worlds. But one person kneels, gathers the papers, and meets the stranger's eyes with a smile that says, "I see you, I care." In that moment, the world changes, not with words but with empathy. You do not need to be a president or a philosopher to wield this power. You only need to be present, to notice the small tremors of emotion in the people around you, the nervous tapping of fingers, the forced smile, the sigh that escapes when they think no one is listening. These are the signals, the invitations to connect. And when you answer them, you become a force of transformation in the lives of others. Dale Carnegie wrote, "You can make more friends in 2 months by becoming interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you." Empathy is the art of being interested, not in what someone can do for you, but in who they are, in what they feel, in what they dream. This is not always easy. It requires patience, humility, and the willingness to be changed by what you hear. But the rewards are beyond measure. When you make someone feel understood, you give them a gift that outlasts any compliment, any favor, any fleeting praise. You give them the feeling of being important, not because of what they have, but because of who they are. And in that moment, you become unforgettable. You become the person they remember, the person they trust, the person they want to follow. Empathy is the unspoken language of influence. Learn to speak it, and you will never be forgotten. Respect is not demanded. It is not seized by force or won by volume. It is earned in the quiet moments, in the way you treat people when you have nothing to gain. The world is full of those who shout to be heard, who mistake intimidation for influence, who believe that power is measured by how many people listen when they speak. But true respect is never born from fear. It is born from dignity, yours and the dignity you grant to others. Think of Eleanor Roosevelt, a woman who walked into rooms where she was not always welcome, who spoke for those who had no voice. She did not command respect with thunderous speeches or iron fists. She won it with unwavering grace, with the courage to listen to those who disagreed, with the strength to stand for what was right even when she stood alone. She understood that respect is not a trophy to be displayed, but a mirror that reflects the way you make others feel. In every conversation, there is a choice to compete or to connect, to prove your worth or to recognize the worth in someone else. The loudest person in the room may win attention, but it is the one who listens, who validates, who honors the humanity in others, who wins respect that lasts. Imagine a heated argument, voices rising, tempers flaring, the air thick with accusation. Most people fight to be right, to have the last word, to crush the opposition. But the person who remains calm, who listens without interrupting, who responds with empathy instead of anger, changes the entire dynamic. They become the anchor in the storm, the one others look to for guidance, for stability, for wisdom. This is not weakness, it is the highest form of strength. It is the discipline to control your emotions, to choose your response, to value understanding over victory. It is the art of making people feel safe in your presence, even when you disagree. And in that safety, respect grows, quietly, steadily, unshakably. Dale Carnegie wrote, "Show respect for the other person's opinions. Never say, 'You're wrong.' It is a simple principle, but it requires humility, patience, and the willingness to see the world through someone else's eyes. When you honor another's perspective, you do not diminish your own, you expand it. You become larger, more human, more worthy of respect. In a world that rewards noise, choose silence. In a world that rewards dominance, choose dignity. Let your respect for others be the foundation of your influence. The reason people trust you, the reason they remember you long after the conversation ends. You do not need to raise your voice to be heard. You do not need to win every argument to be respected. You only need to make people feel important, not with flattery, but with genuine regard, with the quiet power of your presence, with the unwavering strength of your empathy. This is how you win respect. This is how you become a leader people want to follow, not by standing above others, but by standing with them, not by demanding attention, but by giving it, not by shouting, but by listening. There's a moment, just before the avalanche, a split second when everything can still be saved. A breath, a pause, a choice. Most people miss it. They surrender to the first surge of anger, the sting of pride, the reflex to defend. But leaders, the ones we remember, they live inside that moment. They catch the avalanche before it falls. They control themselves before they try to control the room. Empathetic, think of Lincoln again, in the darkest days of the Civil War, drafting a letter in fury to a general who had failed him. He poured his anger onto the page, every disappointment, every accusation, and then, quietly, he folded the letter and never sent it. He chose the long victory over the short release. He chose clarity over emotional chaos. He chose to be bigger than his mood. This is emotional control, not the absence of feeling, but the mastery of it. It is the ability to hold your fire, to sit with the heat, to choose the response that serves the moment instead of the one that satisfies your ego. And when you do, something extraordinary happens. The room leans toward you. People breathe again. The conflict becomes solvable. In every argument, there is the content, the facts, the data, the logic, and then there is the current, the emotion beneath the words. Emotion is the river that carries the conversation. If you try to dam it with force, it floods. If you learn to guide it, it flows where it needs to go. Here is the quiet discipline that changes everything. Slow the moment. A single calm breath can lower your heart rate and change your tone. Lower your voice. The softer you speak, the more others must lean in to hear you. Name the emotion in the room. It sounds like this is frustrating. It seems you felt ignored. Validation is not surrender. It is the bridge out of battle. Ask a simple human question. What would make this feel fair? Or what do you need to feel heard right now? People rarely fight for the reason they say. They fight because they feel unseen, unsafe, unrespected. Meet that need and you disarm the anger without humiliating the person who holds it. Dale Carnegie warned that no one ever wins an argument. Even when you're right, you lose the other person's goodwill. The real victory is not the point scored. It is the relationship preserved. It is the dignity protected. It is the future kept open. Picture a conference room where a project has gone sideways. Fingers are pointing, voices are sharp, the temptation to assign blame is strong, but you choose a different path. You say nothing first, you listen, you let the frustration spill without interruption, and when the tide recedes, you speak softly. Let's fix the problem, not the people. Here's what we can do next. The storm breaks, the air changes. You have just led without raising your voice. Emotional control does not mean you never confront. It means you confront from strength, not from spike. You choose timing with care. You deliver truth with respect. You correct in private and praise in public. You make it easy for others to keep their dignity even when they must change. The greatest power you will ever hold is the ability to not react, to refuse the invitation to escalate, to meet fire with water, not with more fire. When you master this, you become the safest person in any room, and the safest person is the one people trust. And when people trust you, something sacred becomes possible. Cooperation. Not the fragile cooperation born of pressure, but the durable cooperation born of choice. The kind that lasts beyond the meeting, beyond the deadline, beyond the crisis. This is how you begin to make people feel important without saying a word, by showing them that their emotions are safe with you, by proving in your silence and your steadiness that they matter more than the moment's anger. Control yourself and you calm the room. Calm the room and you change the outcome. Long after the words have faded, after the applause has died and the lights have dimmed, what remains is not what you said, but how you made people feel. The world is crowded with voices, each one straining to be heard, to be noticed, to be remembered. But the ones who linger in our memory are not always the loudest or the most brilliant. They are the ones who, in a single moment, made us feel seen. Think of Rockefeller, a man whose name became synonymous with power and wealth. Yet those who worked closest to him remembered not his fortune, but his habit of remembering names, of asking about a child's illness, of pausing to listen when he could have hurried by. He understood that the smallest gesture, the briefest moment of genuine attention, can echo for a lifetime. We all crave to be remembered, to leave a mark that outlasts our presence. But the paradox is this: the more you try to impress, the more you fade into the background. The more you focus on making others feel important, the more unforgettable you become. There is a quiet art to this. It is the art of noticing, of remembering the details that others forget, of seeing the person behind the performance, the story behind the statistics, the heart behind the armor. It is the art of asking, "How are you, really?" and waiting for the real answer. Dale Carnegie wrote, "A person's name is to that person the sweetest sound in any language, but it's more than names. It's the memory of a struggle shared, a dream confessed, a fear admitted in a moment of vulnerability. When you remember these things, when you bring them up months or years later, you give someone the rarest gift, the feeling that they matter, that they are not invisible, that their story is worth remembering." Imagine a crowded event, everyone networking, everyone selling, everyone trying to be seen. You move through the room, not with a business card in hand, but with a question in your eyes. Who here needs to be noticed? You find the person standing alone, the one who feels out of place, and you offer them your attention. You ask about their work, their passion, their story. You listen, truly listen, and you remember. Weeks later, you see them again. You mention something they shared, a detail so small they'd forgotten they told you. Their eyes light up. In that moment, you are not just another face in the crowd. You are the person who made them feel important, who made them feel real. This is not about strategy. It is about sincerity. People can sense the difference between attention that is given and attention that is traded. The former is a gift, the latter is a transaction. Give the gift, and you will be remembered long after the transaction is forgotten. The world is hungry for this kind of impact, hungry for people who see beyond the surface, who remember the things that matter, who make others feel significant without needing to be the center of attention. You do not need a stage or a spotlight. You only need the willingness to notice, to remember, to care. This is how you become unforgettable. This is how you leave a mark that outlasts your words, your presence, your time. Make people feel important, and you will be remembered, not for what you said, but for what you made them feel. There is a kind of listening that goes beyond hearing words. It is the rarest form of generosity, the most powerful act of respect. Most people listen only to reply, their minds racing ahead, waiting for a pause so they can speak. But the people who change us, the ones we trust and remember, are those who listen to understand. They make us feel, for a moment, that our story matters more than their opinion. Think of a time when you were truly heard, not just nodded at, not just tolerated, but understood. Maybe it was a parent, a mentor, a friend who sat with you in your confusion or pain and didn't rush to fix it. They didn't offer advice unless you asked. They didn't judge or interrupt. They simply listened, and in that listening, you found clarity, comfort, and the courage to keep going. This is the power of validation. It is the act of saying, without words, your feelings are real, your experience matters. It is the opposite of dismissal, the antidote to loneliness. When you validate someone, you give them permission to be human, to be imperfect, to be themselves. Dale Carnegie wrote, "Be a good listener, encourage others to talk about themselves." But this is not about flattery or manipulation. It is about creating a space where people can drop their guard, where they can speak their truth without fear of ridicule or rejection. In that space, trust grows. In that space, connection deepens. Imagine a workplace where a team member is struggling, their performance slipping, their energy fading. Most managers would focus on the problem, on the missed deadlines, on the numbers. But the leader who listens, who asks, "What's really going on?" and waits for the answer, creates a different outcome. Maybe the struggle is personal, maybe it's fear, maybe it's something they've never said aloud. When they finally speak, and you listen, really listen, you become more than a boss, you become an ally. Listening is not passive, it is an active, courageous act. It requires you to set aside your agenda, your need to be right, your urge to fix. It requires you to be present, to be patient, to be humble. And in that humility, you give others the space to rise. Validation is not agreement. You do not have to share someone's perspective to honor it. You only have to acknowledge that, for them, it is real. I can see why you'd feel that way. That sounds really tough. Thank you for trusting me with this. These simple words can heal wounds that have been open for years. The world is full of noise, of people shouting to be heard, of opinions clashing like swords. But the person who listens, who validates, who makes others feel important without saying a word becomes a sanctuary in the storm. They become the person others seek out, the one they trust with their secrets, their dreams, their fears. This is not a skill you are born with. It is a discipline you build, moment by moment, conversation by conversation. It is the choice to be present, to be curious, to be kind. And every time you make that choice, you change the world. One person, one story, one moment at a time. The power of listening and validation is not in what you get, but in what you give. Give it freely, and you will find that the world opens to you in ways you never imagined. You will become the person people remember, the one they trust, the one they turn to when it matters most. There is a force in the world more powerful than command, more enduring than compliance. It is the force of willing cooperation, the kind that cannot be demanded, only inspired. Most people try to win cooperation by persuasion, by argument, by authority. But the leaders who move mountains, the friends who change lives, the partners who build legacies, all understand a deeper truth. People do not cooperate because they are told to. They cooperate because they want to. Think of Theodore Roosevelt, a man whose energy could fill a room, whose presence could rally a nation. He led not by decree, but by example. He joined his men in the trenches, shared their hardships, listened to their fears. He made them feel that their contribution mattered, that their voice was heard, that their effort was seen. In return, they gave him not just their obedience, but their loyalty, their passion, their best. This is the gentle art of inspiring others. It begins with respect, not just for what people can do, but for who they are. It grows with appreciation, the honest, specific recognition of effort, of progress, of courage. It flourishes in the soil of trust, watered by the belief that together you can achieve more than you ever could alone. Dale Carnegie wrote, "Let the other person feel that the idea is theirs." This is not manipulation. It is the highest form of partnership. It is the humility to step back, to invite others to shape the vision, to share the credit, to celebrate the wins as a team. When people feel ownership, they give their best. When they feel important, they give their all. Imagine a family facing a difficult decision, each member with their own fears, their own hopes, their own vision of what should be done. The parent who insists, who dictates, who overrides, may win the argument but lose the family's trust. But the parent who listens, who asks for input, who values every voice, creates a different outcome. The decision may take longer, the process may be messier, but the result is stronger, more lasting, more deeply shared. Winning cooperation is not about being right, it is about being real. It is about showing up with honesty, with vulnerability, with the willingness to be changed by the people you lead. It is about making space for disagreement, for doubt, for discovery. It is about building a table big enough for every voice. The world is full of people waiting to be inspired, waiting to be invited, waiting to be seen. When you make someone feel important, when you show them that their contribution matters, you unlock a wellspring of creativity, of energy, of commitment. You turn compliance into cooperation, obligation into ownership, resistance into resolve. This is not a one-time act. It is a way of being, a daily practice, a lifelong commitment. It is the choice to lead with humility, to serve with gratitude, to inspire with authenticity. And every time you make that choice, you build a legacy that outlasts your presence, a team that thrives in your absence, a world that is better because you are in it. The gentle art of inspiring others is not about what you can get, but about what you can give. Give respect, give appreciation, give trust, and you will win cooperation that cannot be bought, only earned. You will become the person people want to follow, the one they remember, the one they trust with their dreams. There is a moment in every relationship, a crossroads, where you must choose between the safety of distance and the risk of closeness. Most people hesitate at this threshold, afraid to reveal too much, to care too deeply, to be seen too clearly. But the people who change us, the ones we never forget, are those who have the courage to be real. Human connection is not built on perfection, it is built on vulnerability. It is the willingness to show your scars, to admit your fears, to share your dreams even when they feel fragile. It is the quiet strength to say, "I don't have all the answers," or "I've been where you are," or simply "me too." Think of the friendships that have shaped your life, the mentors who have guided you, the partners who have stood by you. What made them unforgettable was not their flawlessness, but their honesty. They let you see their struggles, their doubts, their humanity. And in that seeing, you found the courage to be human too. Dale Carnegie wrote, "Talk about your own mistakes before criticizing the other person." This is not just a strategy for conflict, it is a blueprint for connection. When you lead with humility, when you admit your own imperfections, you invite others to do the same. You create a space where honesty is safe, where growth is possible, where trust can take root. In a world obsessed with image, authenticity is revolutionary. It is the refusal to hide behind masks, to pretend, to perform. It is the decision to show up as you are, to let others see the real you, to risk rejection for the chance at real connection. This is not easy. It requires courage, patience, and the willingness to be misunderstood. But the rewards are profound. When you are real, you attract the realness in others. When you are honest, you inspire honesty. When you are vulnerable, you give others permission to be vulnerable too. Imagine a team where people feel safe to admit mistakes, to ask for help, to share new ideas without fear of ridicule. Imagine a family where every member knows they are loved, not for what they achieve, but for who they are. Imagine a world where connection is built on truth, not on performance. This is the world you create when you have the courage to be real. You become the person others trust with their secrets, their struggles, their dreams. You become the friend who is called in the middle of the night, the leader who is followed in the storm, the partner who is cherished for a lifetime. Mastering human connection is not about saying the right thing. It is about being the right person. It is about showing up again and again with honesty, with empathy, with the courage to be seen. And every time you do, you make the world a little more human, a little more kind, a little more connected. There is a quiet confidence that needs no announcement, a strength that does not shout. In every gathering, every meeting, every chance encounter, there are those who command the room not by force, but by presence. They do not dominate the conversation, yet people lean in when they speak. They do not seek the spotlight, yet the light seems to find them. This is the self-confidence that draws others in, the kind that makes people feel safe, valued, and important. Self-confidence is not arrogance. It is not the need to be right or the urge to impress. It is the deep, unshakable belief that you are enough, that your worth is not measured by comparison, but by authenticity. It is the courage to show up as you are, to speak your truth, to listen with an open heart. Think of the leaders who inspire loyalty, the friends who make you feel at home, the strangers who leave you smiling after a brief encounter. What they share is not perfection, but presence. They are comfortable in their own skin, and that comfort invites others to be comfortable too. Dale Carnegie wrote, "Act as if you were already happy, and that will tend to make you happy." The same is true of confidence. When you carry yourself with quiet assurance, when you treat others with respect and warmth, you create an atmosphere where everyone can relax, where everyone can shine. But confidence is not a mask you put on. It is a practice you build, moment by moment, choice by choice. It is the decision to stand tall, even when you feel small. It is the willingness to try, to risk, to fail, and to try again. It is the humility to ask questions, to admit what you don't know, to celebrate the strengths of others. Imagine walking into a room where you know no one. Your heart races, your mind fills with doubts, but instead of shrinking, you breathe deeply, you look for someone else who seems alone, and you offer a smile, a kind word, a listening ear. In that moment, your confidence is not about you, it is about the space you create for others. True self-confidence is contagious. It lifts the room, it opens doors, it makes people feel important simply by being in your presence. It is the quiet assurance that you belong, and that everyone else belongs too. This is not the confidence of the loudest voice or the biggest ego. It is the confidence of the steady hand, the open heart, the willing spirit. It is the confidence that says, "I am here, I am enough, and so are you." When you stand tall without standing over, when you bring your whole self to every interaction, you give others permission to do the same. You become the person people seek out, the one they trust, the one they remember long after the conversation ends. Self-confidence in social situations is not about being the center of attention. It is about making others feel centered, seen, and significant. It is about the quiet power of presence, the gentle strength of authenticity, the lasting impact of making people feel important without saying a word. There is a shadow that follows us into every room, every conversation, every new beginning. It is the fear of judgment, the silent question, "What will they think of me?" It shapes our words, our posture, our willingness to be seen. For some, it is a whisper, for others, a roar. But for all of us, it is a barrier between who we are and who we might become. Think of the moments you held back, the idea you didn't share, the compliment you swallowed, the truth you kept hidden. Not because you lacked wisdom or kindness, but because you feared the verdict of others. This fear is ancient, woven into our DNA, a relic from a time when belonging meant survival. But today, it is more often a prison than a protection. Dale Carnegie wrote, "You can't win an argument, but you can win your own freedom. The freedom to speak, to act, to live without the weight of imagined eyes, the freedom to be yourself, even when the world is watching." The first step is to recognize that judgment is inevitable. No matter how careful you are, someone will misunderstand, someone will disapprove, someone will criticize. But their judgment is not your truth. Their opinion is not your identity. The only verdict that matters is the one you give yourself. Think of Eleanor Roosevelt, who faced criticism from every side for her activism, her voice, her refusal to fit the mold. She once said, "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent." She lived those words, moving through the world with grace, with courage, with the quiet conviction that her worth was not up for debate. Overcoming the fear of judgment is not about becoming immune to criticism. It is about becoming anchored in your own values, your own purpose, your own sense of self. It is about choosing authenticity over approval, truth over comfort, growth over safety. Imagine standing in front of a crowd, your heart pounding, your hands trembling. You speak anyway. You share your story, your idea, your dream. Some will applaud, some will frown, some will not care at all. But you will know in that moment that you were brave, that you chose to live on your own terms. The freedom on the other side of judgment is not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. It is the ability to move forward, to speak up, to reach out, even when your voice shakes. It is the realization that the people who matter most are not the ones who judge you, but the ones who see you, who support you, who celebrate your courage. When you overcome the fear of judgment, you become a beacon for others. You show them that it is possible to live boldly, to speak honestly, to be real. You make it safe for them to do the same. This is the freedom that changes lives. The freedom to be yourself, to make others feel important, to create a world where judgment loses its power and authenticity becomes the new currency of connection. There is a difference between being in charge and being followed. Anyone can hold a title, give orders, or demand compliance. But true leadership is something deeper, something earned in the quiet moments when no one is watching. It is the ability to inspire trust, to ignite hope, to make people feel that their best selves are possible in your presence. Think of the leaders who shaped history. Lincoln, Carnegie, Roosevelt, Eleanor Roosevelt. They were not perfect. They made mistakes, faced criticism, doubted themselves, but they shared one thing in common. They made people feel important. They listened, they encouraged, they believed in others, even when those others could not believe in themselves. Dale Carnegie wrote, "Give the other person a fine reputation to live up to." This is the secret of great leadership. It is the art of seeing potential where others see problems, of calling forth greatness with a word, a gesture, a look. It is the discipline of holding people to their highest, not through fear, but through faith. Leadership is not about being the smartest in the room. It is about being the most human. It is about showing up with humility, with empathy, with the willingness to serve. It is about making decisions that honor the dignity of every person, even when those decisions are hard. Imagine a workplace where the leader knows every name, remembers every story, celebrates every win, and mourns every loss. Imagine a community where the leader listens more than they speak, where they ask for feedback, where they admit when they are wrong. In these places, people do not just comply, they commit. They do not just follow, they believe. The leader people want to follow is the one who makes them feel seen, heard, and valued. The one who gives credit, who shares the spotlight, who lifts others up. The one who leads by example, who keeps their word, who stands for something greater than themselves. This kind of leadership is not built in a day. It is forged in the fires of adversity, in the patience of listening, in the courage of vulnerability. It is the daily choice to put people first, to make every interaction a chance to build trust, to make every decision a chance to show respect. You do not need a title to be this kind of leader. You only need the willingness to care, the courage to act, the humility to learn. Every day, in every interaction, you have the chance to lead, not by force, but by example, not by command, but by connection. Becoming a leader people want to follow is not about what you achieve, but about what you inspire in others. It is about making people feel important, not with grand gestures, but with small, consistent acts of respect, empathy, and belief. It is about leaving every person better than you found them, every room brighter than when you entered. There is a moment, often unnoticed, when everything changes. It is not marked by applause or recognition, not captured in photographs or headlines. It is the moment when you choose to make someone feel important, not for what they can do, but for who they are. It is the silent gift, the invisible act, the quiet revolution that transforms lives, relationships, and the world itself. Empathetic. Think of the times you were lifted by a wordless gesture, a hand on your shoulder when you felt alone, a smile that told you you belonged, a look that said, "I see you." These moments are the true currency of human connection. They are the reason we remember certain people long after they have left the room, the reason we carry their influence with us, shaping our choices, our confidence, our hope. Dale Carnegie understood that the deepest principle in human nature is the craving to be appreciated. But appreciation is not always spoken. Sometimes it is simply felt in the way someone listens, in the way they remember, in the way they stand beside you when the world feels cold. You have this power. You do not need a stage, a title, or a script. You only need the willingness to be present, to notice, to care. Every day, you are given opportunities to make people feel important in the way you greet a stranger, in the patience you show a child, in the respect you offer a colleague, in the forgiveness you extend to yourself. The world is hungry for this kind of presence, hungry for people who see beyond the surface, who listen without judgment, who give without expectation, hungry for leaders who lead with empathy, for friends who love without condition, for strangers who offer kindness with no strings attached. This is not a grand gesture. It is 1,000 small choices made every day in every interaction. It is the decision to put your phone down and look someone in the eye. It is the courage to listen when you would rather speak. It is the humility to admit when you are wrong, the generosity to celebrate when others succeed, the strength to stand with someone in their pain. And in giving this gift, you receive something greater than applause or recognition. You receive the trust of others, the loyalty of friends, the respect of colleagues, the love of family. You receive the quiet satisfaction of knowing that you have made a difference, not by what you said, but by who you were. This is the secret to making people feel important without saying a word. It is the secret to influence, to connection, to leadership, to love. It is the legacy you leave, the mark you make, the story you write with your life. So as you move through the world, remember, every person you meet is fighting a battle you cannot see. Every heart you encounter is hungry for significance, for validation, for hope. You have the power to give them that hope, to make them feel seen, to remind them and yourself that we are all important, all worthy, all connected. Let your presence be the gift. Let your silence speak volumes. Let your actions write the story of a life that made others feel important without ever needing to say a word.